All right, on this episode of Bare Knuckle Bowker, very excited to be chatting with an individual who's competing in a very intriguing fight set for October the 26th, BKFC Prospect Series going down again, and another headline attraction set to go down here, and a lot going on in this fight. Rick Caruso gonna knuckle up and toe the line against Brandon Bushaw, and great having Brandon on Bare Knuckle Bowker today to talk about this rematch here. How's it going, man?
It's going great, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. Great getting to talk to you. We chatted ahead of your last fight, and kind of crazy that it's been, I guess, almost around a year since you last, got out there. So you must be excited or at least raring to go because it seemed like you had a consistent 2023. So good to see you back in the fold.
Yeah, no, I've been itching, man. So I'm ready to get in there. Less than 3 weeks away. So yeah, I don't like a full year layoff. I'm not in my 20s anymore. So I want to stay as active as possible. So we have one lined up. So we're excited for it.
Yeah, and was there a particular, I guess, thing that kind of informed that hiatus? Because it seemed like like I said, you had a pretty active 2023, debuted in the sport that year and got in three BKFC fights last year. So I guess in saying that, like, was there any particular reason for the hiatus, or was it just a matter of like the matchmakers finding like the best card, best opportunity for you, etc., I guess?
Yeah, there was a number of things. I my hand was pretty banged up after that last fight against Mar. It took me till around the end of December. It was about 2 months to fully heal up. And then I actually was slated to fight out in Albuquerque, and my mom fell ill and passed away in February. So my family asked me to not fight in March. It's across the country. It was just a lot going on, and we didn't know she was going to pass. So it was kind of like, it was just a lot on the family. So they asked me if I could maybe take a step back, because they're fully invested in me, which I really appreciate. So that was hard to deal with, February, March, April. And then I did get a couple offers during the summer, but they were like 3 day, 5 day, really, really short, man. And I have so much going on down here with the wrestling and real estate and everything that, you know, super cool matchups with a camp, but it was like, man, I didn't want to kind of throw the stepping stones I had put in place away on like I got offered Tuesday to fight Friday up in Connecticut. And it was like, just, I said yes. Smarter people around me said, let's, pump the brakes. So been wanting this fight, and I'm happy it's coming too. I wish it was in the middle of the summer, but we're here, man. I'm not going to be picky. I'm blessed, thankful that Andy Hall and Mr. Feldman put this together, and we get to fix what wasn't right the last time Caruso and I fought.
Yeah, well, really sorry to hear about that loss, man. I mean, that's such like a massive thing to happen, but just shows that you have your priorities in check. Just if your family's asking you to, maybe take some time away, because I mean, that's what's most important at the end of the day. Like, it's cool to chop it up about fights and stuff like that, but family is what's most important at the end of the day, man.
Yeah, 100%. And it wasn't even a conversation of a back and forth. It was what it was, and we dealt with it, and we're moving on, and we got it right here with me the whole time. So yeah, so it sucked, but that was the reason for the extended time off. So
Yeah, just exciting to see you get back at it, man. And I mean, a lot to talk about with the fight, but I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't kind of touch on that last performance more because you kind of mentioned it in a cursory way, that fight with Josh Marer at BKFC 52, getting the knockout of the night bonus is always great as well. Like, was that, I guess, the ideal sort of outcome, all factors considered there, getting that second round stoppage that got so many talking?
yeah, with bare knuckle, anything can happen, and anybody who's like 100% confident every match, I think they're full of it because we're fighting with no protection. Cuts happen, but going into that fight, I'll say it was up at 155, and we got in the ring that night. Josh looked huge to me. I was like, so my initial game plan to push him up against the ropes kind of changed, and with that, I found, man, my feet, I felt really light. My footwork felt great. My distance closing in and getting out felt good. And I feel like I really evolved as a fighter in those 2 rounds against Mar. He's a tough dude. He hits like a truck. And in fights before, I saw he would get knocked down and pop right up. But I know when I landed that overhand right that it was about as clean as I can land, and I think it rocked him pretty good. So yeah, I think I found out a lot about myself in that fight, and I'm excited. And we've kept building, because of course I've been in the gym. It's not like I didn't fight for a year. I just been sitting on the couch. So my coach Amos Collins, we've been preaching footwork, distance. I'm a wrestler, so a lot of this is new, but a lot of it is the same basic ideologies of creating angles and distance, just like we do in wrestling. So now that I kind of put that mindset together with the skills of the throwing hands and moving, and yeah, I'm excited. That I learned a lot about myself in that fight, as I do in every fight. But I'm excited moving forward. It's going to be a different outcome, a different Brandon Bushaw against Rick Caruso than it was last time. And I'm sure on his side, he's had 16 months to continue to improve, and he's been active. So yeah, man, I'm excited about the opportunity to square up and see who's got it.
Yeah, and a lot of interesting things you touched on there, but one thing I kind of wanted to, I guess, like touch upon a little bit too. Like you talk about the wrestling base for BKFC, like that's something I've really noticed in the last couple years, few years. I mean, like Kai Stewart, the featherweight champion, certainly stands out as an example, but there's something to it. Like there's the, technical applications, as you said, like the certain angles that kind of bear certain similarities, but it seems like there's also something in that mentality, like the grit and the dogged determination that one has as a wrestler, that in terms of, I guess, a temperament or a mentality seems to lend itself well to BKFC. So it seems like a really good base for BKFC, even though if you said that to like a layman almost, like, oh, wrestling really can behoove you in the bare knuckle space, they might be confused as to why that is. But it really seems like, all those factors considered, just like the mentality and even a lot of the transferable techniques, it really seems like a good base for this sport.
Yeah, I mean, when my manager brought the first BKFC offer to me, I was like, no, I was like, the one thing that I'm not very good at is throwing, boxing. I was like, why would I get rid of all my grappling, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and everything and go out there and box? And then as we looked into it or we researched, I'm like, man, this is a lot like wrestling as far as distance. And then it's like dirty boxing on the inside, which is very similar to ground and pound in MMA. We're just on our feet up against the ropes. So once I kind of harnessed that in and got the idea, it is not a boxing match without gloves. It's totally its own thing, which is why I fell in love with it so fast. It's a whole nother, it's just different. It's different than every other combat sport. And there are techniques that you can really work on and get good to really, really kind of dominate. And you see a lot of the wrestlers that do that. I mean, Kai Stewart, like, big respect to him, man. At first, when I first saw him, I was like, this dude. And then you watch him fight, you're like, yeah, he's a dog. You got that. The longer the fights go, typically wrestlers, man, that's where we live, in that deep water and that gut check time where it's like, man, I don't know if I have it. It's like you look across and you're like, that dude hasn't been through what I've been through. Like in boxers, man, they're animals too, but wrestler, it's just a different grind, man. It's different. You learn a lot about yourself. I know I can go all 5 rounds, whether I'm beat up or delivering the beating. It's going to take a lot. Lights are going to have to go out, or a big cut's going to have to get me out of there because I'm not quitting.
And I mean, you touch on it there, like it's like the thing with wrestlers is they almost really show their mettle in like the later stages. Like they almost somehow seem to, I guess, like ramp it up, like ramp up the pace. And just with so many of your fights elapsing within like the first couple rounds, I feel like that's an altogether new dimension that we haven't got to see as of yet. Like not necessarily to say that it could happen in this fight coming up here, but just as like a general idea, like that seems very exciting in a certain sense. Like that wrestler in the later rounds ramping up the pace sort of dynamic. Just the fact we haven't seen that from you in a BKFC context yet.
Yeah, my job's to get in, get out as fast as I can, take no damage, not get hurt. But the idea of it going in around 3, 4, 5 to me is exciting. That's where you learn about yourself. We really get to dig down and figure out, is this what I want? And I don't think everybody has that gear in them. First round sucks to me. I hate it. I hate it back my whole wrestling career because you got to get those jitters out. You have adrenaline dumps and you have everything. You're second guessing what you've done to bring yourself to that point. But by the time first round's halfway over, you get into that second round, you're like, this is it, baby. Like this, like if you watch my last fight, I was stoked going in that second round against Mar. I was like, let's do it, man. Let's go. Like one of us is going out, you know what I mean? And in this game, I don't think there's a whole lot of shame in that. These dudes are animals, and I give much respect to everybody, the whole roster. Y'all are crazy, and I'm happy to be a part of that crew. But yeah, man, I would love to obviously be a one hitter quitter, get my hand raised. But if we drag this fight deep, I think that's where it really goes to my advantage. So I would love to pull Rick into those deep waters and see if he can swim.
And I mentioned it in the introduction of the interview, but this one being a rematch, it would seem like this is a particularly, I guess, like satisfying opportunity because I'd seen an article on the BKFC site just a few days ago where you were talking about how like having a no contest at the end of your record is worse than losing, and just, what transpired in that BKFC 42 fight. Like obviously unintentional strike to the back of the head causing that, premature ending and stuff like that. So I guess all that being said, is this like a particularly, I guess, satisfying turn of events, like getting the chance to actually run this back and have a conclusive, definitive sort of ending to it and not that weird feeling of a no contest?
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I'll take a no contest over a loss. But coping with it is different. You're just vanilla. It's like whatever. Like, I'm not happy. I'm not sad. Like, I'm mad. So no, I'm excited that we're getting to do it. And I'm not sure if there's ever been a non-title fight rematch in BKFC. So I think it's going to be a good matchup. Like I said, he probably won that first round, and I know he ripped me with a good body shot. I took a knee. My coaches say if you get hurt early, take a knee and regroup rather than going out early. So I did that, and I figured I had 4 rounds left to work, and I hit him, and it was weird, man. If I watch it back, I didn't expect him to be facing the other way. When we were in a clinch against the ropes, I've never had anyone do that. So at least I know, I learned whatever, make sure I know where my target is before I throw. Cause initially I didn't think I hit him in the back of the head, and I watched it back, and I certainly did. Um, Only he knows if he could have continued, or if he was trying to grab a quick DQ win, or if he was really, really hurt, because after they called it a no contest, he kind of jumped up pretty quick, like he was ready to bang. So like I said, that's on him. He's got to sleep with that. But either way, he gets to settle it. If he thinks he can beat me, and he was up in the scorecard. Now we got 3 weeks left to settle it. I just want it to come out one way or the other. Of course, I want to have my hand raised, and I plan on having my hand raised. But let's get the damn thing done. I don't want any technical BS this time.
And it must be cool for you getting to fight again in Myrtle Beach, just with your BKFC debut transpiring there. And also seems like you do a lot of real estate agent work out there. Like you were kind of talking about that earlier, just how many different things you have on the go. It seems like Myrtle Beach is a spot that you get up to a lot of business within, both in terms of the fisticuffs and the real estate.
Yeah, and it's crazy. And with our wrestling academy, the support system, it's like a full circle. My real estate people that I work with, from Revolution Mortgage and Lend My Brokerage, Innovate Real Estate, they all support all facets of what I get into. Some of them think I'm crazy for, I'm not, like I said, I'm not a young man anymore, but they support not only myself, they support our wrestling club, because it was a big endeavor to take on. And they've supported it financially through sponsorship. They're sponsoring my fights. They're coming to right cage ringside at tables. So it's really neat to see, from youth wrestling to real estate to law to everything tying in this community. It's really special. And between myself and Jeremiah Scott, who is the co-main on this card, it's going to be rowdy, man. The amount of ticket sales we've already sold right around the ring it's going to be bananas. So I'm excited, man. It's going to be loud. I love fighting in front of the Bushaw Brigade. This is my 31st fight. And I fought all the way from Florida to Maine, and they have always traveled. And when I'm home, they pack it in. And yeah, it's exciting, man. I want to be the superhero or the villain. So I love being the superhero at home, and I would love to go down and maybe fight one of those real tough guys down in Miami, Florida, and be the bad guy. But we'll get through this, and then we'll address that after.
And it must be satisfying for you to, be where you're at now. I mean, I guess you kind of talk about like the communal dynamics of like the, real estate component sponsoring the school and what you're doing in fighting. It must be cool to kind of create your own, I guess, internal sense of community, because like I'm obviously not someone who like is a professional fighter per se, but I've trained in like a hobbyist kind of way over the years a bit. And I feel like one of the big aspects of getting to train at any kind of martial arts academy is just like that communal sort of aspect, like the bonds you make with people. And just what it does for people's fitness, etc. So that must be cool to kind of have that kind of thing and, foster and curate that kind of space, I guess.
Yeah, and that's what made me fall in love with wrestling when I was a kid because when I started I wasn't very good, but it was the community is a wonderful thing, and that transpires in through our youth wrestling program and all the way up through our jiu-jitsu side and striking. It's like family, when you get it in and you're sharing blood, sweat, you get a certain level of respect and camaraderie with your training partners. It's just not, I played baseball and football and hockey, and it's all great, don't get me wrong, but there's nothing like one-on-one. You're out there, it's and the support, because it's an individual sport, and that goes for people who train with you, also the people who support you. My wife, my family, my sisters, my dad. Without them and without their blessing, I mean, dude, you crazy? I'm 43 years old. They'd be like, what are you doing? But they know I put the work in. They know how much I love it. And without their support, to be honest, I probably wouldn't love it as much. So yeah, the community, from immediate family to our general larger family between real estate and the wrestling club, it's awesome, man. And the people who come to watch the show on October 26th are going to see it. You're going to hear it, man. It's a boom. They get loud, they get wild, and I love it.
Yeah, and it must be cool, like in a generational kind of sense too, because it seems like your daughter is really doing great things in wrestling too. Like I saw you had a post a while ago where you were like, "Oh, she stole my stubbornness, she stole my wrestling stance." Like it just must be cool, man, because I'd seen that you were a two-time state wrestling champion for Westbrook High School and got inducted into Maine's Wrestling Hall of Fame thereafter. So it must be cool to, see your daughter doing what she's doing in the same sport. I mean, I'm sure you'd obviously be happy with her pursuing her energies in any kind of space that would draw her in, but it must be kind of like a cool point of connection between you guys.
No, it is. And it was all organic, because the one thing I did not want to do is push my love of wrestling and all this onto my kids, because if you don't love it for yourself, you're never gonna. It's not easy, and it's sometimes not fun. But she showed interest a few years ago, and my son as well. He's only 6 and she's 11. But watching, yeah, and on that post, I was totally right. Like, her stance, I'm one of my high school teammates saw it, and he's like, "Oh my God, I recognize that stance." And it's just natural, They say the first daughter is just like the dad, and man, she really is. And her work ethic is there, her stubbornness, her willingness to learn, her attitude. I think you need a little bit of in this game. Um, it's exciting. We've been traveling all over the country for her with wrestling, and now we have to do a little divide and conquer, because little man Kellen is playing, baseball, tackle, football, and wrestling. But man, it's been an exciting journey. We're only 3 years in. She helps me coach the girls only in the fundamentals class here at the club, and yeah, it's like, that's time that you could never get back. And you're right. It doesn't matter if it's wrestling or not. It's whatever they showed interest in. Being there and being present is important, and the days fleet and they fly by. So I'm thankful it's something we both love, because I would be there if she was doing cheering or gymnastics, tumbling, or soccer, but this is like a true passion that we share together, and as an entire family. And like you said, generational, from my dad to my nephew. My nephew and my daughter are both wrestling in Super 32 this weekend. Probably one of the toughest tournaments, and I'm not so sure either one of them are just ready just yet. He's a freshman, and she's only 11, and a girl, and there's no girls division, but we get to do it together, and these are memories that are being made that'll last forever. So, and you're right, man. Family first. Without it, nothing matters. So doing it with family is extra motivating, extra special.
Yeah, no, it's great to see, man. Like there's just so much that seems like it's, just a great thing in your life, a lot of cool things on the go. And yeah, just awesome to see you back in the BKFC fold. And I do appreciate you making some time to talk today, man. But I want to be mindful of what you're, getting up to for the rest of the day as well. So I figured I'd kind of put the ball in your court in case there was any kind of final parting thought you wanted to add as we're wrapping things up here, Brandon. I do appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, like, of course, I want to thank the support, the Bushaw Brigade. They have come through time and time again. I'm very excited. Like I said, thank BKFC. I don't plan on going anywhere. age, like I said, it's just a number. I feel great. I'm thankful that Caruso is going to do this fight again. I know he likes to fight at 35, and he's coming up, which is fine. That might be an advantage for him not having to deal with the weight. I know sometimes at 155, I feel better. So it is what it is. But no, I'm beyond thankful for everything in my life. Family, the opportunities, my sponsors. Got to give a shout out to Impact Mouth Guards. They just hooked me up with a new mouth guard, and Takedown is taking care of my shorts. And yeah, man, like I couldn't be happier. I'm thankful. I like these tough fights. I want tough fights, and I want to stay involved, man. Like I said, I get it. I'm a realist. I'm not as disciplined as Tom Brady. I don't see myself going forever, like that dude. But I still think I have a couple more years, definitely a couple more fights. So thankful to be a part of it, and I look forward to showcasing what we've been working on.
Yeah, well, it's very exciting because this was even something I was gonna kind of touch on before. I guess like one of the aspects of that layoff, because you've always struck me as an individual who's actively working on your skills, and you said as much earlier in our conversation. Like I feel like that layoff almost, I guess from even like a fandom observer kind of perspective, it's gonna give people a chance to see like maybe not a totally new version of yourself, but at the very least like a lot of skills leveled up in the years since we've last gotten to see you. So that's exciting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, Amos Collins, he's been doing all my striking work, and props to him because he owns Burn Boot Camp here in Myrtle Beach, and he's a dad, and he's got time, and he'll come to the gym after wrestling classes are done and put me through workouts till I vomit, and getting me there and working on everything becoming reactionary. And the more we do it, the more repetition. My days of putting on the 16-ounce gloves and standing in the middle and swinging as hard as I can are over. Like I spar, but it's controlled. I hit mitts. We do all the work, and I think that's where I progress. When I was younger, sparring, we were just fighting. You're getting used to the action, but it's not a real. You're not overly developing, and it's an important part of it. Sparring certainly is, but this work of the science, which is really intriguing to me, and like I said, he's broken it down for me, so I look at it through a wrestler's lens for boxing, and it was kind of an eye opener. I was like, well, yeah, it makes sense. I don't want to shoot straight in front of somebody, create an angle, then shoot. It's no different with this. So I'm excited. Hopefully it translates. I'm looking forward to it. I got my buddy Carter Starachi from Penn State, four-time national champion. He's coming down. He's in my corner this time with my dad and Amos. And then he's doing a clinic here at our wrestling club on Sunday. So super cool, man. That guy, he's going for his fifth national title. It's just add a little pressure in my own corner, but I'm not trying to go out there and not come through and look real tight, in front of that dude. So I got, and then the number one guy that I care about is my dad. He's right there, right in the corner, and I don't want to let anyone down. It certainly won't happen on effort. I can promise that.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you have a very strong corner and just, yeah, definitely a story to this fight, man. This Rick Caruso fight's going to be a good one. Very excited for BKFC Myrtle Beach. And I'm sure that's a shared sentiment among many leading into October 26th. But to reiterate, thanks for coming on Bare Knuckle Bowker and giving me great insights as you did the last time. And yeah, looking forward to peeping this fight and the overall card. But until then, man, you have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you, man. We'll see you soon.
All right, on this episode of Bare Knuckle Bowker, very much excited to be speaking to an individual who is featured in the main event of a looming BKFC Prospect Series card, which goes down on October the 26th. And a couple lads running it back, excited about that component of the fight as Brandon Bushaw knuckles up and toes the line one more time against Rick Caruso. And very much appreciate Rick coming on Bare Knuckle Bowker to talk a bit about that today. How are you doing, man?
Another day in paradise, man. Thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah, I love that. And I did mention it in the intro. I mean, this being a rematch and all, and I would think that this would be an intriguing fight, just even in like a closure kind of sense, maybe, just because that first fight ended sort of inauspiciously, just with it being a no contest and all. So I guess what's the general mentality and I guess thought process behind everything going into this rematch from your first fight at BKFC 42 in May last year?
Um, I'm more so instead of a rematch, I feel more so like we get to finish it. We finally get to finish what we started. Um, probably the longest 5 minute break I've ever had in my life. The uh the back of the head shot wasn't intentional. I'm not sure why the commission decided to stop it before the break was up or whatnot. But just I'm excited to finish it. I hate not the no contest thing is kind of like and then having to explain it, it's like we were fighting. We both wanted to continue fighting, and the state didn't allow us to. So we get to finally finish it this time, and then go out and have a drink or good steak or something together, and then train together in the future. But until that point, we got to finish what we started.
And from what I was seeing after that initial fight I referenced, you were, I guess, ideally hoping for an immediate rematch. I mean, it's great that it's booked now, obviously,
Oh
but
yeah.
was there any point in this timeline where you were uncertain that the promotion would pursue a rematch, or were you always confident there'd be a sequel clash here?
Um, to be honest, after we left South Carolina and what not getting the call to fight him at the last Myrtle Beach show, I just figured it was out the window. And I mean, it's not my weight class anyway. I'd move up a weight class to fight him. So it was at that point when they scheduled him against Mar instead of me. I was like, well, all right. I guess that's out the window. They know how the fight's gonna go, so it doesn't intrigue them anymore. And then I got a phone call, and here we are. Oddly enough, the day I got the phone call, one of my memories was someone asking about that fight and the matchmaker saying, the next time we go to Myrtle, we'll have to put it on. And here we are a year later.
Yeah, I know it's cool, man. It just seems like it worked out. And I mean, I talked to Brandon the other day as well, and he also seemed like he had a similar, I guess, temperament with the whole thing. Like there's something about a no contest that I don't know, you're in kind of a weird spot because even if either of you were to have lost that fight, at least there's like some sort of clear path thereafter where it's like, okay, I could work on this, like just to say lessons to be learned even in that outcome. But there's just like a certain, I don't know, a feeling of like lack of closure with like a no contest. So glad you guys
Yeah.
got this rematch locked in.
Yeah, I'm excited. I was kind of iffy if it was gonna be able to happen because of all the storms and everything on the East Coast right now and a little lack of communication. But finally got a little bit. So as of right now, it's still on, and in 2 weeks we get to put fist to face and see how it goes.
And I mean, you've had such a proven track record so far in the BKFC. Like in doing my backgrounding on you, I thought it was quite remarkable the fact you've been in there with the number two, three, and five ranked bantamweight contenders in the BKFC right now, with Justin Ibarola, Ryan Reber, and Abdiel Velasquez occupying all of those spots. Like it just there's a certain gamesmanship in there for sure. Like there's not really a specific question within there, but I just thought that was definitely a
I just
notable
don't
sort of
say
thing.
no. I just don't say no. I like to freaking fight, and I like to get paid for it. So
Yeah, for sure. And I'd seen something after your, I believe it was the BKFC 62 fight, or leading into the BKFC 62 fight, rather, where you were talking about how you've been preparing for this for, I mean, 15 years, really. Like there's that cumulative sort of build of all your, combat sports experience. But I mean, it also seems like you have a focus on like very specific bare knuckle techniques and whatnot too. And I find that interesting because I feel like some fighters really, swear by the knuckle strengthening techniques, and some are like, it's not necessarily a thing I allocate that much time to. It seems like you're in a good spot where you're using, I guess, what works from other combat sports you've been involved in, but also realizing you might need to do certain specific things to condition your knuckles for this sport.
oh yes, we got a metal bar at the gym that we use. It's it's fun. It is it is accumulation of everything that goes into what works and what doesn't work. And with, I mean, honestly, when bare knuckle came around, that's what it was. It's been a learning ground of, and until as they continuously grow, you're going to find more and more people that are finding the things that work, and that's all they're using is the things that work, and then they'll be the next era of champions. I mean, you've got, well, we've seen it happen already with Reggie Barnett. He was hands down educational hands and the best pound for pound bare knuckle guy there was. There's so much from the way he trains and the training styles he used that I've taken and worked into mine. And so did other people. And then those people came up and they used that with other things, and now they've surpassed him. And it's going to continue to do that the more the sport grows and each athlete finds out what works. And then you've got coaches that are like Ryan Perez. I mean, he has a stable of bare knuckle monsters, and he straight to the things that you need to train for bare knuckle, to the point that people don't want to fight as guys, and now they're having to go back to boxing just to get fights. So as the sport grows, we're all going to learn how to make things work better for us and each individual, and applying it directly to bare knuckle.
Yeah, and I guess just going off of what you're talking about, like maybe I'm attaching it to like a specific outcome, but I guess you just talk about the manifestation of certain techniques and, seeing certain things demonstrably be effective in some of these different fights. Like, was it a particularly important moment for you getting that victory over Landon Williams at BKFC 51 and notching that first BKFC victory? Just because, I mean, you really showed, I mean, you were even referencing in a post that I had seen after the fight talking about how even though it was your 60th bout, like you were still nervous to the point that you had like tears in your eyes walking out for
Yep.
that, and just talking about how, it doesn't matter how good you are necessarily if you're not nervous, you're going to get hurt and whatnot. And just seemed like such an important win too, because you also had another post talking about how you read all the feedback from some of the people online, like with phrases like dog fight and then certain derogatory phrases like no skill or bum fights. It had to have been satisfying to like get a victory whereby you had an 85% landing accuracy and just all factors considered.
Yeah. The victory was bittersweet because it wasn't as tough of a I wasn't fulfilled with that win. I would have rather fought 5 rounds and took a split decision loss versus a first round win like that. If that makes sense. To most people, that won't make sense. To fighters that give their life to this, they understand it. I train for my life. If I'm not at work or with my kids, I'm in the gym training. And while it is sweet and awesome to have those knockouts or to have that quick fight, when you put forth 4 and 5 months of training to fight for 10 minutes and you get to fight for two, you leave there's still a little left on the plate. We're kind of like the Bushaw fight. It's like, dang, what if, or the no contest is, I just, I would much rather have a long, tough fight than a quick, easy one. But at the same time, the paycheck's the same. So if I knock them out quick, I knock them out quick. If we fight for 5 rounds and I knock them out with 2 seconds left in the fifth round, that's the way it goes. But the key here is the knockout. I feel it comes in this fight.
Yeah, and I guess just all the things you've outlined there, like, do you ultimately see it coming in the later rounds, perhaps? Like, not even necessarily to say you would like, I guess, want to carry it out to that, or me saying that in any way about Brandon Bushaw. But I mean, just you were talking about how sometimes it's more satisfying to like get those like get in deeper waters kind of fights when you've put so much into the camp. Like, is the ideal time for this stoppage that you're foreseeing maybe in the later rounds of this fight, you think?
Um, Truthfully, whenever he feels like stopping, it'll stop. I'm not planning on anything in particular. I'm planning to fight this man, and I'm good at that. So we'll react to how it goes. I'm hoping it's not a quick fight because both of us would rather it be a longer fight. I feel like he's a athlete like me. I mean, he's very competitive. He was a D1 wrestler. Um, so I feel like he has the same mentality that I have towards this. I would much rather have a tough fight where we both got to test each other's skill truthfully than an A side, B side fight. So I feel as if he's as prepared as I am, we're about to have 5 rounds of war. If uh if he's not, then we'll see how it goes. I can't make a prediction as to when it's gonna stop or how it's gonna stop, but I know my hand's gonna be raised at the end.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just yeah, cool to see that rematch got locked in general and everything like that, just because both of you have obviously, since competed. And I mean, I guess maybe it's like a pseudo like entering enemy territory sort of situation. And as far as like
Oh
Brandon
yeah,
Bushaw has
we're
that
going
like,
to his house.
yeah, yeah. Does that embolden you at all? Is it like a non-factor or like how would you characterize that, I guess?
I always go into, I'm from small town well, I'm from North Carolina, but I live in small town West Virginia, and ain't nobody coming here to fight us. So I'm always going to enemy territory. It's nothing new. I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing new places. I mean, I've been to Myrtle quite a bit. I've got some friends and family down there, so it's not like I'm going somewhere I don't know or aren't welcomed, but that man sells a bunch of houses there and everybody loves him, that's for sure. I enjoy the booing, the booing. Like the last time when we walked out in Rock Hill, you could feel the vibrations of the crowd booing. It was kind of cool. I mean, either way, you paid to see me fight. Whether you want me to win or lose, I appreciate the support, and I understand you're going to support your guy, so you're supposed to boo and all that jazz. And if you're booing me loud enough that I can feel the vibrations, then I just feel like you're cheering me on. That's super cool. Means it's going to make TV, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely exciting stuff, man. And I guess one of the questions that I had kind of had that I guess ties into the previous example I gave about how many of the top bantamweight contenders you fought. It seems like this one is at featherweight, and there's some discourse about you maybe wanting to kind of pursue this division more so going forward.
Nope.
Like, is that kind of the idea? Like wanting to have a longer,
Nope.
like more bantamweight?
Yeah. Man, I walk at 140 pounds. I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not fighting featherweight. Guys like Brandon Allen. No, thank you. I'm good. I mean, I'll fight. They pay me, but that's not a 45 is not a division that I'm looking to chase championships and stuff in. I'm entirely too small for that division. I could make 125.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
They got to pay me for it, but I could make 125 no problem. So I am a okay with just taking a couple of, yeah, intriguing fights at 45. And I mean, I'll fight up 55. I don't care if it's intriguing, it's going to look real good when the smaller guys out there, because I'm super small. But 35 is my home. I can make 35 in the morning.
Yeah, fair enough, man. It does seem like a good fit for you, and obviously not overlooking this fight, but I'd seen in a previous article there, sorry, where you were talking about, I guess, just even wanting to maybe even have another rematch down the line, like maybe run it back with Ryan Reber, because I think a lot of people saw that. I mean, it kind of even ties into what you were saying before, where you were like, oh, I'd almost rather, lose like a competitive enough fight and know that I really, I guess, like showed a certain amount of my skill. Like it seems like even though that fight didn't go your way in that like very rigid binary of a win or a loss, it seems like a lot of people look at that as like one of your better performances, especially considering the caliber of a guy
Yep.
like Reber. So I guess in saying all of that, is that something that you would, I guess, want in the future? I mean, it would definitely inform your upward mobility, give you a chance to like
Yes.
tie up a series with him, etc.
Oh, yes. Absolutely no disrespect at all, but I'd love to run it back with Reber, Abarola. Abby's ahead of me in the standings. I'd run it back with Abby. I have no issues fighting anyone ahead of me in standings. The goal, like I said, the goal is to be champion, and the only way to do that is to fight guys that are ranked higher than me. I the Ryan fight, I mean, we seen that up until I was winning that fight till I lost, and which is how quite a few fights go. You win them till you're not. But the man just fought for the championship, so I feel like I belong. I'm right here. I'm one or two choices or one or two punches away from having a 3-2 record versus the record that I have. So we'll catch this W. The plan is to catch this W, go back down to 35, fight whomever they put in front of me, and work your way back up that ladder. And time comes, cool. I appreciate it. I'll take whatever is offered and fight whoever's in front of me like I always do. I'm professional, show up on weight, put on a show. That's the goal.
And I guess this is something I even kind of just thought of now. Like it wasn't really even in like a planned question that I had per se, but just with the Prospect Series events using like the rings that have the smaller dimensions as opposed to like the bigger dimensions one would see with the ring on BKFC's numbered events. Like how much does that kind of, I guess, take up space in your purview, I guess? Like, does it positively inform your approach to this fight at all? Or is it kind of just, it is what it is. I'll fight in like the smaller ring or the bigger ring. It's like a non-factor, non-thought, I guess.
Well, it doesn't matter to me, because even though I'm long and rangy, I have an issue with using my range. I'm one of those guys that when I get hit, it's like, forget it. Let's just stand here and see who's bigger and swing until one of us falls. So I like fighting in a phone booth. Putting me in that 16-foot ring just puts me in that fight a little bit more. So, six half dozen of the other. Don't matter to me. Fight's a fight. We're going, yeah, I don't care if he wants to stand there toe to toe right in the middle and let's just swing till somebody falls. That works for me too.
Yeah, it's just so many exciting machinations to the fight, I guess, in how much we've been kind of talking about your pursuit of wanting to climb that 135-pound hierarchy and some of the ranked bantamweights that you've already fought. Like, what are your thoughts on the current champion, Alberto Blas? It seems like he's had quite the run. Like, it seems like he, can't get out of the first round. Like, what are your thoughts on what he's, I guess, done so far in his run as BKFC's bantamweight champion? I know it's like relatively early in the tenure, being that he notched that first defense over Reber as we were kind of talking about, but what are your thoughts on, I guess, his output in the BKFC so far?
The man's a monster. Um, Certified monster. I am curious how he fights someone who puts him on his back foot. He pressures forward, moves forward a lot. Does very well. He's very accurate. I am curious how he responds to someone that puts him on his back foot. And of course, that's saying that someone has the ability to put him on his back foot. I mean, we've yet to see it, but I feel like that we will see that in the next couple of fights. Within his next two or three fights, he'll have someone that'll put him on his back foot. Um, I don't see Ibarola being one of those guys to put him on his back foot. Ibarola counter punches kind of like I do and like Reber does. Um, Oddly enough, I mean, I know he's not in the runnings, but I would like to see like a Travis Thompson style fight for Blas, or a fighter like Travis Travis is going to move forward, put you on the ropes and swing punches. And whether you're punching him or not, the man's going to walk forward, walk you down and swing punches. And I think that's at some point, a style like that would put Blas on his back foot and we'd get to see how he reacts to that. He very well could react with the same power and knock out whomever. But I'm curious to see how he reacts fighting off his back foot.
Yeah, I guess that is one of the big question marks with him. And I mean, it is just as you said, it's not to necessarily presume he wouldn't be just as effective if he's put on that back foot, but just a dimension we haven't got to see as of yet because he's largely been getting those like 1 minute or even sometimes like sub 1 minute finishes. So, yeah, just an exciting time in the division. It seems like, I mean, really in combat sports in general, but also specifically in bare knuckle, it seems like the 135-pound class is one of the deeper ones. So I would think that being a part of that would be exciting for you.
Oh yes. I enjoy it. There's so many different matchups that can be made and they're all exciting. I'm as a fan of the sport itself, I just like watching exciting fights. So I know that there are quite a few that can be put on that have me on one side of it. And that is the most interesting thing to me.
Yeah, and it seems like with BKFC now establishing that DAZN deal, I mean, it seems like the sport and I guess even specifically the promotion itself, there's just these incremental, points of growth that you seem to see pop up over time. And I mean, you were kind of talking before about just the exciting nature of this fight and how well it's going to resonate on the broadcast. I mean, a platform like DAZN, I mean, could stand to have X amount more people see that exciting performance, right?
Yep. I'm excited about the growth of the sport. There are the people that have been in since day one and they're like, yeah, what about the app users and things of that sort? But you have to be accepting the change and you have to roll with the punches, especially in this game. And I think it's going to just lead to more viewers and that leads to bigger paychecks and things for us and more opportunities. So if you're create friction against that change, then you're probably not one of those people that get called to continue your tenure with the company. So I'm along for the ride. I enjoy it. I love seeing it grow. My paycheck increased when Connor bought in. So yeah, and I'm assuming it's only going to continue to go uphill from there like that as long as we keep performing.
Yeah, and I guess I'd be curious to get some insights into this too, because I was seeing in your BKFC bio on the website that you run a flooring company. Like, how many people at the workplace know about the bare knuckle exploits, and what's the general temperament in that regard? Like, do people ask about it a bit? Do they kind of think it's cool? Like, what's the, I guess, thought in that sense?
So I run a like a local remodeling company and most everyone has figured out who I am and things like that in the area. So there's questions and stuff, but I honestly haven't been in the work field with the construction stuff in like 6 or 7 months. I've been selling insurance, which is even more hilarious. I do supplemental insurance things, and they'll ask, just creating rapport, chatting with people, conversations come up about being a professional athlete. And then it's like, oh, that's under there? You do that? Wow. And then there have been a few people that have walked in, like, because most of the time, right, currently I'm in schools chatting with teachers right now. And there's been a few times that different teachers have walked in and they've been like, oh, no, are you serious? Man, I see you on TV. I know you, which is really cool and flattering. I, and humbling at the same time, because I'm a small town guy that just blue collar. I work, go home and feed my babies and get to punch people in the face sometimes for fun. So, but then oddly enough, almost every person on my team at the insurance company all train at the gym with me, and more than half of us are professional fighters as well. So it's really hilarious. We sell people accident. We tell everybody we punch people in the face, and then we sell them accident policies.
Well, it must be kind of cool too, because like the idea of fighters having their competitive careers while concurrently having like more, I guess, like full-time, consistent kind of work that's not tied to the idea of getting a bout offer every now and again. Like sometimes it's like
Yep.
a little, maybe like dicey is the wrong word, but just to say sometimes like you don't always maybe have that boss that's like the most understanding of the fight endeavors and flexible and whatnot. Like I feel like you'd be the consummate
Yep.
ideal boss in that regard. Like it's like, oh hey, I got a fight coming up. Like I need maybe a little bit of
Oh yeah.
time off. Like I imagine you're pretty, accommodating in that regard.
Yep. Yep. And likewise with my upline and things. For instance, I'm taking the week off to go to Myrtle, and I just, hey, my fight's in October 26th. I'm taking the week off. All right, cool. I'll reschedule the other people, and that's just how we do it. I wish that it was big enough that we could be financially stable just being fighters and just training 24/7. I feel like being able to do that, we could put on even better shows, but that's a dream. And that's one of those dreams that you realize really quickly after you become a professional athlete that as a fighter, you're not going to, unless you're the champion for a very long time, you're going to have to hold another job as well.
And it probably ties into you, from what I can tell on your social media, being like so involved in your, romantic relationship, but also being a father. Like you talked about coming home to feed your kids. Like maybe if you're like a single guy just doing whatever, maybe you can find a way to make it work even. But there's probably some part of
Yeah.
you where it's like, I want to provide like a good life for, my family in a certain regard. And I need a certain level of like regular income stimulating the situation. So it's probably even informed by that to a certain extent, if not to like a very overt extent, I guess.
Very overt. Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, as a single, when I was a single guy before I and just a dad to one, it was a lot easier. But now they're chasing their dreams, man. I got one that just signed. He just signed his signed commitments to Vanderbilt for baseball,
Oh,
so he'll be
nice.
starting college in a couple of years. I got one that's on a state champion football team for high school. He's a freshman this year. And then two little girls that want to be cheerleaders and battle of the books and all that. So, I mean, they're the epitome of why I do this. I did the whole fighting and turned pro and all that stuff because people said I couldn't. And I'm like, here, hold my beer, watch this. And then I had the babies. And I'm like, hold on. I want them to know that no matter what, no matter who, what's said, what happens, win, lose, draw, anything. If you like something and you want to do it, chase your dream. Forget what other people said. And that's why I do it. I get to look at them, and instead of saying, do as I say, not as I do, I get to say, look, your dad is an old man that still gets to fight on pay-per-view, the biggest organization in the world, in front of everybody. And I do it for fun because I like it. They pay me for it. And then I get to come home and tell you guys that dad was on TV. And you're like, yeah, I watched you. Win, lose, or draw. That's the goal. And I want them to remember that when they find a hard time, face a hard time, or their friends don't like what they're interested in, I want them to be like, well, everybody thought dad was stupid or crazy for doing bare knuckle, and look at him. He's top 10 in the world on pay-per-view. I'm going to do what I want to do. And that's what I want. Lead by example.
Well, that's incredible, man. I love hearing stuff like that, and that could even be a great parting thought in and of itself, I suppose. But I do want to be mindful of what you're getting up to, Rick. So I figured I'd give you the floor in case there was any final thing you wanted to kind of impart as we're wrapping up here. I really appreciate you making the time.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you. Thanks. Simple shout out and thanks to my sponsors. I'm probably going to forget someone. I'm sorry. Wild and Wonderful Nutrition, West Virginia. Um, Optivise, obviously. Then we have Just Blazed Clothing, Rick's R&R, Pure Romance by Jacqueline, Wolfman Tattoo, Titus Electrical out of North Carolina, the the 2-6 Fams and the Hooligans, um, Diverse Photography, I Care Lawn Care. Oh man, I'm forget. Oh, and Loudon Bout bail bonds, man. If you guys get in trouble in Loudoun County over in Tennessee, make sure you shout her out. She's awesome. And thank you, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you letting me tell a little bit of my story and open up before the fight. It makes for a little bit of downtime where my mind's not doing crazy things. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, glad to have you on, man. This should be an exciting main event. And yeah, no, thanks so much for coming on Bare Knuckle Bowker. I was definitely excited to see this Brandon Bushaw rematch announced just because of the nature of the first fight. So glad to see we're gonna see some level of closure here with BKFC Myrtle Beach and everything. And I'll definitely be checking out on October 26th. But until then, man, thanks again for appearing on Bare Knuckle Bowker and have a good rest of your day, Rick. Thank you.
You do the same, man. Have a great one.